Hello Rajiv ji, Kamal from merasangeet.com and a warm welcome to you today once again on our show Chat in Chai.
Pranam Kamalji, thank you very much. Good to be here.
प्रणाम राजीव जी, कैसे हैं आप?
I,
और इमिग्रेशन बिल जिसे हम पिछले कई हफ्तों से डिस्कस कर रहे हैं, बिल का क्या हाल है, किस स्टेज तक पहुंचा है और क्या उम्मीदें अब हम और लगा सकते हैं?
that bill is referred to as S744. S as in Sam, 744.
Okay.
What is going on is that in the Senate, which is the upper house of the United States, a legislative body, like in India we have um, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha being the upper house. So Senate is kind of the upper house, and this bill has originated with the efforts of 8 senators, 4 from Democratic side and 4 from conservative Republican side, who are referred to as the Gang of Eight. So it's a bipartisan effort. And what has happened was that after going through the committee, which is the first step in the bill's process, it now
Right.
has landed on to the full floor of the House. For the last couple of days, they are talking about it. And yesterday, one major thing that happened was that the Senate agreed by a large majority to stop extending the debate indefinitely on the bill. This is called, in USA, it's called the cloture motion, which basically means we are going to close the debate and start actual working on the bill, which includes there may be further amendments introduced. The conservatives, which is the Republicans, have very strongly indicated in the Senate that they want more enforcement provisions, border protection provisions. So
Okay.
it looks like, as far as the high tech visas are concerned, as far as the visas for family, etc., are concerned, everybody is in agreement over them. The disagreement so far appears to be largely in the area of enforcement and what they refer to as triggers. There are also some Republicans who do not like the idea of giving quote unquote amnesty to 11 million people without
Okay.
putting a lot of riders on them, such as you must learn English, you must pay taxes, you must go back and pay taxes. So there's a lot of conflict in some areas, but the areas that a lot of our listeners are concerned with, those areas are fairly well settled. It looks like we are going to see some kind of a point system emerge in immigration. It looks like one category, which is brothers sponsoring brothers, will be eliminated. It looks like
Oh.
physicians will have very, very good inroads into USA. It looks like people with PhDs will have very good inroads into USA. It looks like people with STEM degrees, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, will have very good inroads into USA. It looks like employers will want to file for green cards for existing employees as well as future hires as quickly as possible, because that creates a certain benefit for them when they are counted as H1B dependent or independent employers. So you asked me what is the status of the bill. So the bill has gone through the cloture motion, which has overwhelmingly being voted on. What can happen is you can actually in USA you can debate a matter indefinitely. So if you wanted to
Okay.
to stump a bill, one easy way to do it would be to just keep talking, because there is no limit on how long
Right.
a congressman
Right.
or a senator
Right.
can talk,
Right.
and that's called filibustering. So the
Right.
filibuster is out. Now this is just the Senate side. On the House side, leadership has again indicated that they want to have a separation from amnesty. There are other bills that there are other parts of the bill, for example, the high tech visas, entrepreneur visas, where they are reducing the investment amount from $1 million to $250,000. They want to
Yes.
increase people coming into the U.S. who are entrepreneurs, because there are so many of us here, immigrants, who have developed these companies that have become large, and they've done very well by the U.S.
Right.
market. They have created an edge for the United States. So on the House side, there is definitely some disagreement, but House is of course the lower house of the U.S. Congress, Parliament. In India, we call it Parliament, and we call it Rajya Sabha. I'm sorry, we call it Lok Sabha, the lower house. It'll be interesting to see if there is disagreement amongst the two houses. Then the matter goes into conference where representative of both houses sit down and they try to negotiate the differences and come up with a compromise. President Obama spoke very strongly in favor of the bill yesterday. So I have a very good feeling that the bill will get somewhere this time.
Okay.
Since the 1980s, this is the first time in 20, 30 some years that we have a good chance of getting a good bill through. There are one thing is true. There are parts of the bill I do not like at all. There are parts of the bill I absolutely think are a great idea. They're great for USA. They're great for the world. And President Obama said that. He said, look, this is a compromise. In compromise, nobody is going to be completely happy. Somebody is going to walk away disgruntled because that's the way this bill is put together. We have made a compromise.
Exactly.
So right now,
Exactly.
we are watching what happens in the Senate. The political pundits say that if the bill gets passed by 70 votes or more, that will put a lot of pressure on the House side to pass the bill as it exists with minor amendments. Right now, they are going to introduce more amendments. Some of them will be voted upon and taken in, some of them won't be. And then finally, when the bill gets passed at the Senate level, we have to see how many votes they get. Okay, if they get 70 or so, then we have very good chance of getting this passed. Some people yesterday from the political circles were saying that this might extend into November, December, but definitely not into the next year. Some people are saying, at least publicly, that this should be done by this summer, which is by August. So we'll see. We'll see how far it goes. But we'll try to update it every week because every week there's something going on. So I'll try to keep everybody updated every week.
Right, Rajivji, and like we said, the bill certainly has certain very good points, and some of them are not very good. And there's something that I read right now, and this is related to the depreciation of the rupee against the dollar, wherein the Indian IT companies say they are happy with it, but the US immigration bill that seeks to make visas more expensive would hit business. Now, if the bill gets passed, do you think it would hit the Indian outsourcing firms with higher visa fees, and what is the kind of impact it's going to have on these outsourcing firms and on business?
I think there are two ends. Perhaps I'm being overly simplistic, but I've worked with doctors, engineers, nurses, IT people, professors, investors for almost 3 decades now. I think I'm qualified to make a comment or two. I see that there are two ends of the IT market in the United States, which are being supplied by Indian engineers. One end is the low end, which is quality assurance testing, etc., which is normal, shall we say, lower end of the IT business. Then there is the higher end of the business, ERP, infrastructure planning. I don't think in the higher end it will make any difference. Okay, because one thing is we cannot find people at that end who are without a job in the United States. All Americans who have those kind of skills in ERP, in infrastructure, in virtualization, things that are in high demand, or for example, Linux, Apache, MySQL, PHP, LAMP technologies, open source software. These people have jobs. There is nobody looking for a job who has these skills, as far as I know. And of course, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong. In that market, I don't think it will make a difference because there is plenty of profit for anybody who deploys people and does projects in those markets. In the lower end market, where the margins are smaller, it might make a difference. So I'm not sure. Personally, I think it will not make a large amount of difference. But you know what is happening is this article that you talked about ignored one thing. There are actually now restrictions on outplacement, and that becomes quite complicated. There are also restrictions on how many H1s and L1s you can have in total, and the number keeps decreasing every year for the next 3 years after the bill is passed. So overall, we Americans want to see a larger percentage of American workers. And remember, when we say American, it does not necessarily mean you've got to go looking for somebody who is a US citizen. But we want people who are authorized to work in the United States, like green card holders or political asylees who have the right to work in the United States. They should be deployed properly, and no discrimination should be made against them. again, it all depends. There are a lot of hurdles being placed in outplacement, and one of the hurdles is that you've got to advertise in the local market. You've got to place ads on a U.S. Department of Labor website to show that you've tried to recruit local people, and this can cause a lot of delays. So expense is one part, delays is another part, and expenses are also associated not just with filing fees, but the salaries are supposed to go higher. And some people have complained that you want us to pay an H-1B worker, for instance, a level 2 salary minimum. There are 4 levels, so let's say level 2 salary. But isn't that a discrimination against US workers? So let's say I've got 3 job openings for the same level of jobs. I've been able to find 2 people in the US market. The third person I've got to hire on H-1B. Now all of a sudden I'm required to pay him the higher amount. I have no choice.
Yeah.
I've got to pay him.
Right.
Okay. One thing people don't realize is that the law is quite pernicious when it comes to those situations. What is required is that you have to have parity in your own workforce. So somewhere along the line, you're going to have to end up raising the wages for the whole genre of people in that level. And I don't think that's very profitable or good for the US businesses. But we'll see how this phases out. I think there's still some debate. There's still a lot to be said on these aspects, and I'm sure this will be brought up. There are plenty of people on the Hill in Parliament, US Parliament, Congress, who are talking about these issues. So over the next few months, we will see. I'm sure all these issues will be thrashed out.
Right. So that was pretty elaborate. So Rajivji, and now I think we should go ahead and see some of the queries sent in by our listeners here.
Yes, ma'am.
On merasangeet.com. So the first one here is Melissa, who says he runs a business here in the United States, but it is not professional workforce that he's looking for. But he says, can he, in this process, get his cousin over from India and sponsor her, or bring her over to the US to work in one of his businesses here?
For non-professionals, there are no options if you are India born. Things like H2B visas, which are skilled worker visas, are not available for certain countries, and India is one of those countries. So no, for non-professional workers, if you are an Indian, you have no temporary immediate options. No.
Okay, all right. Moving on to the next question, Rajivji. It is again from a listener here of Mera Sangeet, who says that his cousin is a doctor working in India and is to be married to a H1 visa holder here in the United States. Now the question is, once his sister marries and comes to the United States, how long would it take for her to start to work? Would she then be immediately on a H-1B status? And in that case, would she be allowed to work because she's a doctor? And what is the course to be followed?
Okay, here's how it will work. First of all, remember, a physician is also a scientist. So there are 2 aspects. She does not lose her degree in science by coming to the United States. She just loses her right to work as a doctor, as a physician. So if she wants to work as a physician, what she will do is she'll start taking the proper examinations. The USMLEs 1 and 2 would be required to get licensing. So, and if she wants to go on to H-1B, she'll need USMLE 3 as well. So she has to take the proper exams to work like a physician. And after the examinations, she will apply for residencies, she'll get matched, and she'll go into a program and do her residency. And then if she wants to do fellowships and all, she can do residency on H-1B. But at the same time, if she simultaneously wants to work, for instance, as a scientist, and she can get a job as a scientist, she can get an H-1B. So a lot of doctors, physicians, what they do is they enroll in programs like public health administration, and they want to do an MPH or some similar degree to expand their knowledge. So she could do all of those things. She could study, she could work as a scientist, and she could prepare for examinations. She would only get immediate visa if she worked as a scientist.
All right, okay. So that means that she just gets married and then she comes to the United States and then stays put till the time she's allowed to work, or she can...
If she gets a job in her field. I also want to add one more thing. There's an interesting area which interfaces between technology and, for instance, basic medical sciences or medicine. There are a lot of apps being developed where physicians' knowledge is needed. So she could work for one of those companies who deploy or employ physicians to help with their app development or their software development. There are so many companies who are developing software completely geared towards healthcare management. So, or things that physicians use in their practices or diagnostics or biotechnological fields. So she could get deployed in some of those fields where her degree is required to understand the field, but it is not required for her to have a license as a physician.
Okay, all right. So, Rajeshji, these were the queries sent in by our listeners this week, and thank you so much for your time and for elaborating on the current issues on immigration, and thanks so much for being a part of our show today on Mera Sangeet Sabka Meet.
Always a pleasure, Kanwal ji. बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया. Pranam.
Okay, आपका भी. Have a great day. Bye-bye, Raju ji.
Bye bye, ma'am.